Okay, so and I've thrown out a bunch of wide receivers. I'm not going to repeat myself with the names I've thrown out in the past, but I did was looking at who's out there. What potentially is there some diamond in the rough, somebody that could slip through the cracks? Um, and you're talking about young guys, undrafted guys, and guys who are kind of dead ended at their spot. Let me give you some dead ended receivers. They've had some talent. There's no doubt, but they may be at a kind of a dead end where they're at. Kendrick Bourne, it looks like he's probably going to be on the outside looking in at the cutdown. He's kind of reached a dead end in New England. You have any interest in Kendrick Bourne?
I would love to have him. It just, how do you get him away
How do you get him away from what?
from New England? Like, I mean,
Well,
he's
I
done
think
a
they're going to cut him. I think they're going to
that's
cut him. I'm
if they
pretty sure
cut
they're going
him.
to cut him.
Oof.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at New England's depth chart. So they've signed Stephon Diggs. That means he's making the team. They signed Mac Hollins. That means he's making the team. They have Pop Douglas. So there's three. They drafted Kyle Williams in the third round. That's four. The talk of their minicamp has been this Efton Chisholm the third from Eastern Washington. Let's just say he makes it. That's five. And so you have Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker, who was their fourth round pick last year, Jalen Polk, who was their second round pick last year. And they also have three other donkeys who they brought in as well. I don't know much about those guys. But so, it looks like Kendrick Bourne will compete with Boutte, Baker, and Polk, and maybe Chisholm for one spot, two spots. You know what I mean? So I think there's a very good chance that I'd be more interested in Chisholm, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that kid from Eastern Washington. He's just all the guy does is catch the ball. You can't stop him. He's kind of like a Lad McConkey. He's a tiny little guy, but Kendrick Bourne is an interesting name. But I'm going to throw out two names of guys. So these guys are all kind of pedestrian. Like Kendrick Bourne to me is kind of pedestrian at this point. He's slow. Tennessee's going to wind up cutting Treylon Burks. He's kind of a first round bust. I think Houston may wind up cutting Christian Kirk. That's an interesting name because he can really run.
He's one of your A&M guys, and he's produced in, what, 4 different offenses now? 3 different offenses now? Like, he can produce.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Arizona in one of the early games a few years ago with Josh Rosen went up top early in a game into Christian Kirk and burned the Niners for like a 40-yard catch. So he's out there. I was thinking of, is there anybody who's truly dynamic, who's like exciting? I'd be, oh my God, it'd be exciting to have these guys. Well, I found 2 guys, but they both have problems off the field. And then one of them signed yesterday. The 2 guys I saw were Isaiah Bond, the former Texas receiver, who probably should have gone in the second round or third round, but he had an assault charge at the time of the draft. And since then, there's been he's said he's innocent. He's countersuing. They're, suing for defamation, all these different things. So the Chargers just signed with Mike Williams retiring. The Chargers signed Isaiah Bond yesterday. What do you think of Bond, by the way? Because, I mean, to me, that would have been a really viable, interesting name. A guy who runs really well, who had a good career at Alabama, went to Texas, finished up there, kind of caught behind in a numbers game at Texas behind Golden and others. But Isaiah Bond is super fast, and at this point, I think that would be a ridiculous steal, but he went to the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm a Longhorn. So, I watched this dude play a considerable amount. I can tell you he's got all the talent in the world. He's got first-round talent and speed and, athletic, whatever. You can't trust that dude on the field. 49 or the Longhorns were pulling him off every third down because he doesn't go back to the ball. He doesn't run the right routes. He doesn't catch the ball in pressure situations, but the talent is off the charts. And so the work ethic, the off the field, there's a lot of question marks, but talent will always get a chance in the NFL. And so, I totally get it. Didn't get drafted, finally lands with the Chargers, probably a good spot for him. And this is what you're relegated to. If you want, the criteria you put out there, we want somebody electric, somebody exciting, these are the type of guys, Isaiah Bond, and we'll go through a couple other names that, like, man, this is what you get, because there's 90-man rosters are filled across 32 teams. You're picking at scratch. So if you want electric, you have to take a chance on either major injury history or major character.
Yeah, one or the other, right? One or the other. No, what's the old saying, John? Everybody at this point's got big warts. Big warts. A lot of warts. Okay, so Bond is the first guy, but he's gone. The second guy is even crazier, but he's electric, man, and he's a great player. I mean, there's no question in my mind this guy can play, and that's Kadarius Toney. Now, Kadarius Toney is a dynamic punt returner. They called him the human joystick at Florida. The New York Giants took him in the first round. He's floated around because he's crazy. He's crazy. And then I think he's got some kind of an assault charge pending, but I don't know how credible it is or what. But once again, I mean, this guy is electric. You want to actually add somebody who's going to be a scary weapon for the defense to defend. Isaiah Bond and Kadarius Toney are electric, but then there's the off-field issues. Mm-hmm. But then you think, well, the Niners took a look at Damon Arnett as a corner the other day and ultimately didn't sign him. He went somewhere else. But, I mean, if you're going to take a look at Arnett, who's got a checkered past, then why wouldn't you take a look at some of these other guys with checkered pasts? But what do you think of that name? I mean, obviously, the Niners don't want to sign anybody who's assaulted people. And I think both these guys may have had issues with women, so that makes it even all the more, and sometimes you just want to say no, just no, just like that's my line, and that would be my line too. But then there's
they met with Mike Green 4 times before,
right? And also there's two sides to these stories. I mean, you got to do your due diligence. It's like, is this a guy in the wrong place at the wrong time, dealing with the wrong people who, and there's nothing there, or is this guy really assaulting women? I mean, if he's assaulting women, there's no place on the Niners for him. I think they flirted with Ray McDonald and others during the Harbaugh era. It is interesting that Isaiah Bond was signed by the Chargers, run by Harbaugh. So maybe Harbaugh has lower standards. Maybe the Chiefs, who have signed Kareem Hunt multiple times. Should the Niners lower their standards to go sign? Like the Eagles took Jalen Carter in the first round. Jalen Carter's supposedly a bad guy. Supposedly he's done some bad things. He's a great player. Where do you sit on talent tolerance for bad guys?
I really do think, one of the main criticisms of the 49ers is, Kyle Shanahan's too stubborn. He doesn't learn. He doesn't change, whatever. I disagree, especially whenever we look at personnel. Reuben Foster affected and changed the way in which the 49ers add talent. And they really haven't gone after a player with a checkered past at all, really, since that Reuben Foster ordeal. And whenever they cut him the day before a game, since then, it hasn't been all Boy Scouts. That's not what I'm saying. But, you just signed to Marcus Robinson, who was coming off a DUI, and another Florida wide receiver. That factors into the equation. But do you want to bring in a guy on the back end of the roster that can disrupt? And Kadarius Toney is so talented. There's a 2-time Super Bowl champ, whatever you want to say about him. I remember whenever he got drafted, and Urban Meyer, who was the head coach of the Jaguars, literally flipped out because he was about to trade up for him. People wanted this guy in the first round. He's so talented. His tape was incredible. It's just, man, the drop passes, the, not working hard, the off the field. I'd prefer somebody like a Justin Ross, who just got released, 6'4", former Clemson guy that does play the X, something like that. The Chiefs did him a solid and cut him because they basically said, you're not going to be a starter here. He asked for a release. They gave it to him. That would be somebody. Now, again, go back to your whole thing. Is this going to excite? Is this going to bring excitement and electricity and all that stuff? I don't know if that guy's out there right now. And so Kadarius Toney, if he's got his stuff straight, which I would question, but you'd have to meet with them. And I have no problem with the Niners meeting with these types of players and figuring it out. Just like you said, Damon Arnett, who has the most checkered past of anybody in the NFL. Like, and the Niners have said they will turn over every stone. They will look everywhere they can, and they will see what helps this team. I just don't know. With guys like Isaiah Nayer and Tariq Owens and, some of these guys, these young high upside players, how do you trust the guys you have in-house or do you not? What's that look like? And that's another problem with the PUP preseason. If Ricky Pearsall and, you don't get an extra roster spot versus the 90-man roster. If they stay on the PUP past the 53-man cut down, then you get an extra roster spot. But just because you have all these wide receivers not practicing, you don't get an extra slot for the 90-man roster if they're on PUP or NFI. They count. And so who are you going to kick out to sign Kadarius Toney or Justin Ross? Who are you cutting?
Well, I'm not worried about that. I mean, I know what you're saying. Yeah, you're going to have to create a roster spot. But, I mean, you got guys right now at wide receiver that aren't NFL. So I'd cut them. I'd cut Gage. That'd be the first guy I'd cut is Gage. And then probably after that, maybe Malik Knowles. And, in the camp era or part of the year, there are, you got some latitude because you got a 90-man roster. It's going to be a tough call at the cut down for sure. That's why I don't know if do you try to look for more of a difference maker? I'll give you two guys that I think I would definitely be kicking tires on as far as in my room, in my office. If I'm sitting there with whoever the Niners pro personnel director is right now, the college director, the pro personnel director, Lynch, he's sitting around with his lieutenants and they're thinking about every possible wide receiver scenario. You would think, right? Let me give you two teams that I think might be worth keeping an eye on this summer. Okay, the first team I'm going to throw out is Tampa. Let's take a look quickly at Tampa's depth chart because I want to show you something here I think is interesting.
They got a lot of guys.
They got a lot of dudes. And they got a lot of spots covered. So look at this Tampa wide receiver core. Mike Evans is their 1. Chris Godwin, their 2. Emeka Egbuka is their 3. Ohio State rookie, drafted in the first round, very polished. Those are their top 3 receivers. Jalen McMillan, I would say, is their 4. Third-round pick last year, and he looks really good. So that's 4 right there. Then you've got Sterling Shepard, who's a very established NFL receiver, really good ball skills. You got Trey Palmer, very fast. You got Raheem Jarrett, who I know they like.
I like Raheem.
And then they drafted Tez Johnson in the 7th round. Now, I think this sets up for Tampa to try to slide Tez to their practice squad. Right? That's what this depth chart looks like to me. If you said, well, how's this going to go? Evans, Godwin, Egbuka, McMillan are going to make the team for sure. And then I would say 1 out of Shepard, Palmer, and Jarrett probably make it. And that may be all they go with. They may only go with 5. Now, they may go with 6. But, Tez could be a cut-down guy. He's tiny, but you saw at the Senior Bowl. I mean, weren't you at the Senior Bowl?
I wasn't at the Senior Bowl.
Oh, you were.
But I was breaking down some tape, so that's probably what you saw.
But, you're familiar with Tez. Tez didn't run a great 40, but it was uncoverable in Mobile. I mean, nobody could stay within 5 yards of him. And he's, he didn't run a great 40 time for the stopwatch, but he's quick as a hiccup. So he's a playmaker. So I what am I looking for? I don't care about shape or size I'm just looking at a guy who's tiny and I'm talking about replacing Jawan Jennings. But I don't think it's about, you don't need the body type replication. What you need is a playmaker, and Tez is a playmaker. So Tampa is one team I'm looking for at the cut down. Do they cut
the 49ers were at Tez Johnson's pro day. He's at Oregon. Jordan James, they had how many? 11 personnel people there. And so they're familiar with him. They were at the Senior Bowl. So there's a lot of overlap there for sure.
The other name that I heard a buddy of mine suggest don't be shocked if this guy gets traded, and we'll go look at the Vikings, is Jordan Addison, who just worked out a deal this week, I believe. He resolved his DUI case. He pleaded no contest to a lesser charge. But this guy just has he's I don't know if he's a bad guy. He just has a lead foot. He's been driving way too fast, pretty consistently. But this is a really talented player, and yet look at their receiving room: Justin Jefferson, Jalen Naylor, and then they have Ty Felton from Maryland.
Yeah.
He's going to make the team. That's 3. Rondale Moore, that's 4. Obviously Addison is their guy, but if they were willing to listen to offers for Addison, I would be calling them because I think Addison's a difference maker.
Yeah, pure speed outside guy that can kind of do it all. I think if they're willing to get rid of him, sure. I doubt that they will. They seem to be all in, and he's so good. Great complimentary number 2 wide receiver. But the off the field issues are immense. There's no doubt about that.
And then if Addison makes their team, maybe Rondale Moore doesn't. And I know Shanahan's a big fan of Rondale Moore.
He was awesome at Purdue, man. Some of the best college tape I've ever seen. I still remember that Purdue versus Ohio State where he just lit them up, man. They could not stop that guy for anything.
Or you could just kind of wait, to see which rookie receiver shakes out at the deadline or which young receiver that you like shakes out. We talked about Green Bay, the Jets, and Kansas City are very loaded at wide receiver. But I mean, that as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't. The other one is with Isaiah Bond going to the Chargers. Brendan Rice could wind up getting cut. I don't know how you feel about Jerry's kid, but
yeah,
that's
pure
interesting.
X. That's what you need. You need that X wide receiver. He's a pure X. You know what I mean? So as far as fitting that outside X wide receiver till Ayuk gets back, yeah, Brendan Rice plays that X role very, very well.